Hi students, this video is starting out with rotations and angle terminology. So if you take a look at our picture here of our x and y axis, there we go. Okay, it has all the quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4 named. Okay, the initial side is always going to be on the x-axis, and this is 0 degrees. Okay, as we go to the left, that is our angle in standard position. So from 0, if I go all the way up, this is 90 degrees. And then I go another 90, and then another 90, 270, and then another 90, and back to 360. So anyway, if I am graphing my angle, the initial side is at 0 degrees. The terminal side is where the angle ends. So from here to here would be my angle. Now, the other thing we have is something called a reference angle. A reference angle is the acute angle, which means less than 90, formed by my terminal side and the x-axis. So right from here to here, this would be my reference angle. I'm going to put a little R in there. Okay, so we're going to just draw a couple pictures of what the angles would look like, and we're going to find their reference angles. Okay, so if you take a look at our little box here, it has little pictures of each quadrant and the reference angle. So if you're in the first quadrant, your angle is less than 90, so it's already a reference angle. If you're in quadrant 2, so if you take a look at our picture, that would be 120 degrees. My reference angle is almost to 180, but not quite. So since I went 120 degrees, how many degrees are between 180 and 120? 60. So that's my reference angle. Now if I'm in quadrant 3 and I go all the way around to 240, my reference angle, again, we always draw it straight up to the x-axis. This is 240, and then this is still 180. How many degrees are in between 240 and 180? 60 again. And then if I go all the way to quadrant 4, all the way around, this is 315. Now it's almost to 360, right? So if I draw my angle up, the angle in between 360 and 315 is 45. Okay, so we're going to just draw a couple of these. It says, for each of the following, we're going to draw an angle rotation. We're going to identify the quadrant and label the reference angle. So just a quick review again, the quadrants, quadrant 1, and then you go to the left, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if I look at letter A, 72 degrees, remember this is always 0, this is 90, so 72 is in between, and you would rotate from 0 up. And then what quadrant am I in? Quadrant 1, and label the reference angle with theta. Theta would just be this, and it would be 72 degrees because our reference angle is always an acute angle. Okay, let's look at letter B, 250. So again, you're starting at 0. I'm going past 180, past 90, past 180, not quite to 270. So I'd be all the way to here. This is 250. Okay, so that's my little rotation. The reference angle, theta, is this itty bitty angle right by the origin. And then how many degrees would it be? Well, how many degrees are in between 250 and 180? In other words, you can subtract them, and you would get 70 degrees. Okay, so we're going to do the other couple in class together. So we're going to take a look at the next page. So we're going to go back to SOHCAHTOA, and except we're going to be in the coordinate plane, the XY axis. So here's my steps right here of what I'm going to do. So step 1, we're going to draw our triangle in standard position. Again, angles at the origin. Make sure you're in the correct quadrant, so it'll either tell you or to give you a point. We're going to label our sides, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. And then we have to find the missing side using the Pythagorean theorem. So it's kind of the same thing we did before, but we're in a quadrant. And then we write our trig ratio, whichever one we want. It should be a fraction. And we have to decide if it's positive or negative. Okay, so let's look at number 1. I have the point -6, 8. So if I were to graph that point, I would go left 6 and down 8. So I'd go over -6, down -8. And basically what we're going to do is make a triangle. And this is my angle, theta. It's always at the origin. So I want to know what sine is. Okay, so sine SOHCAHTOA, so, which is O over H. But what's missing? Our H is missing, right? So in order to find the missing side, we got to do the Pythagorean theorem. Now, you can, if you want, just use 6 and 8. If you're going to put the negatives in, make sure you use parentheses. So the A and the B are just my two sides. C is always the hypotenuse. So I'm going to type my -6 parentheses squared plus parentheses -8 parentheses squared. I get 100. So 100 equals C squared, square root. My missing side is 10. Now, very important, the hypotenuse is always positive no matter what. So what am I looking for? Sine theta. Make sure you write theta after sine. And then I got to label my sides. So what do I have? Here's my angle. Opposite is across. And then I just found my hypotenuse. So it's -8 over 10. And then you want to make sure it's in reduced form. So you can even type in make a fraction first. And then just do -8 over 10. -4 over 5. So that's my final answer. We're going to do one more. We're going to actually do exercise 3. So it tells me that secant is 6 and theta is in quadrant 1. So first thing I'm going to do is draw a triangle in quadrant 1. Now, it doesn't really give me other information except for secant is 6. Secant theta equals 6. If I write it as a fraction, it's 6 over 1. Now, secant's body, if you forgot, you can look at your, you can hit your trig button. Secant's body is in the middle of those three, so it's cosine. So ca, it's going to be the opposite. It's H over A. So H is 6, adjacent is 1. So when I draw my triangle, the hypotenuse is 6, adjacent is next to, what am I looking for? I'm looking for the opposite side. So remember, 6 is always the C value. So A squared plus B squared, so 1 squared plus B squared equals 6 squared. 1 plus B squared equals 36. Subtract the 1. B squared equals 35. Radical. Now that doesn't come out nice, so we're going to leave it in radical form. Okay, so if you look at the directions or the answer, it says exact value of tangent. Exact value means keep it as a radical. So tangent, SOHCAHTOA, O over A. So there's my angle. Opposite, adjacent. So tan radical 30. Whoops, why did I write 36? Hang on, let me fix this. I just realized this should say 35, right? 35. There we go. So this should be radical 35 over 1, which is just radical 35. And that's my final answer. All right, so we're going to do the other ones in class together. We have one more to do. Okay, so this one you just got to kind of read. It sounds confusing, but we're going to draw an XY axis. It says a circle centered at the origin has a radius of 10. So first thing I'm going to do, draw a circle. Okay. The terminal side of angle theta intercepts a circle in quadrant 2 at point C. So in other words, I'm drawing my triangle in quadrant 2. It intercepts the circle at point C. So that's where it touches the circle. The y coordinate is 8. Y goes up and down. So this side of the triangle is 8. What other information did they give me? The radius is 10. Radius is from the center to the circle. So that's going to be my hypotenuse. So it's the same thing we just did. We're trying to find the missing side first. And remember, the C value is the hypotenuse, which is 10. So 64 plus b squared equals 100. Subtract 64. B squared equals 36. Square root, square root. This one does come out nice. So this side is 6. Now, super important, I went to the left, so it's going to be -6 because when you graph, anything to the left is a negative number. If I go up, it's positive. The hypotenuse is always positive. All right, what am I looking for? Cosine. Whoops. Cosine theta. So cosine. So ca. A over h. Theta is my angle. Adjacent is next to. Hypotenuse is 10. -6 over 10. Type it in. So make a fraction. -6 over 10. -3 over 5. So my final answer, -3 over 5. So we'll do the rest of it, the next question in class together. Bye.